Heyo, what is up everyone? It is the Alpha J of the Alpha J show and let's talk about DuckTales. It's taken me a while to get to this show, only because of all the other projects I had to do, but I'm really excited to get this off my plate. I'm sure the tons who have requested it are happy as well. So let's suspend our disbelief and ask ourselves, did the DuckTales reboot start off well? Well, let's find out. Today's shoutout will also be T-Blocks, and if you don't know, they are a wonderful monthly subscription-based service that send you a box of amazing merchandise each month tailored specifically to your interests. You can go to their site and you can give them your interests and receive either officially licensed merchandise or merchandise created by external artists, which T-Blocks is also open to working with. They work with Disney, Marvel, Sega, Nickelodeon, Nintendo, and so many more to give you awesome designs. And this is the best part. If you don't like the design, you can exchange it. So there's no trouble if a shirt doesn't fit or you just don't like the design of the shirt. And if you want to support the channel, I have a link which gives you 10% off your first month, and it helps me out a lot. So if you'd like, the code is ALPHAJYTBX, all one word, and the link is in my description below. So this episode starts off with that Disney 2D animation that I love. I've seen it in Gravity Falls and Milo Murphy's Law, and now I see it in DuckTales. It's pushing the boundaries of what is 2.5D, this sort of non-flat 2D animation, which is probably an oxymoron, but the effect really breathes life into the show and gives it that cinematic feel that I hope they keep up in later episodes. So within the first minute, we are exposed to a lot about how the show is and how these three here, soon to be around 6 characters or so, are. They give away that it's a clash of lifestyles between Donald Duck and Louie and Huey. Here's how I remember the names. There is a quote from one of the archivists from Disney, Dave Smith, that reads, "Note that the brightest hue of the three is red, Huey. The color of water, dew, is blue, Dewey. And that leaves Louie, and leaves are green." The animation flows very smoothly, and it doesn't take a YouTube video to explain that. The babysitter appears to have received the wrong address and won't be able to get the kids in time as Donald Duck is preparing for a job. It appears that the kids are clear for whatever they're attempting to do before...
Alright boys, we'll get to Cape Suzette and back before anyone realizes we're gone. So long, Darkberg. Hello, Uncle Donald.
Yeah, these are good mischievous kid characters. So Donald Duck goes to set his directions to McDuck Manor, where Scrooge McDuck lives. Huey, Louie, and the blue-shirted duck, Dewey, all show their enthusiasm for Scrooge, explaining his legacy and building him up as a great person, to which Donald downplays it as a favor owed to him by Scrooge. Before I continue, I just want to talk about the art style. It's very similar to the Loud House, in the sense that the comic book style is a big influence on them. It feels very natural, not so robotic with its color choices as well. We see a very bored and discontent Scrooge McDuck appearing to be in a meeting. From this view, it appears as if the safe is empty, but a later view shows that this is simply not the case. We get Donald driving up to the manor, and Scrooge is on his way back with Launchpad, another character that we will see more of later in the series. I do think that this show, and a lot of other Disney or Disney XD animated shows lately, are hitting the mark with characterization. So Donald is already outside the manor before Scrooge comes along, wanting to get inside his wealthy abode. I know I haven't said too much about the comedy, but...
Uncle Scrooge. Uncle Scrooge?
it kind of speaks for itself. I do find the back and forth between these two very interesting. The fact that Scrooge has this almost disconnected personality is a tell for maybe something being discovered later in the series. In fact, this episode, while over your standard length of a television episode, does very well with either showing or not showing you things based off of what you may be interested on in the attempts to make you watch later episodes. Which, like I said in my Teen Titans vs. Teen Titans Go video about Teen Titans, is exactly what you want to do if you want people to come back to your show. So Huey, Louie, and Dewey immediately bombard Scrooge after his weak attempt to try to get to know his family, which causes Scrooge to place the trio in a quote designated play area. I do think that the word choice still exists and it matters here. The nanny, Miss Beakley, could have said room or something of that nature, but the fact is she didn't, and that really lets you understand who this person is. You could have put 100 people from different cultures, regions, and mindsets into a room and and have them say basically the same idea, but in different words, because again, word choice matters. So obviously, if you remember the beginning, the trio are already planning their escape as if it isn't a question. I also assume that the paintings on the wall are references to other things in the DuckTales franchise, so there's also that. So now that I've talked about the amazing characterization, the amazing art style, the amazing animation, and the amazing choice of words, let's talk about the music. Even though to some who have already watched the pilot, or many, we aren't at that song yet. Just a music choice throughout this episode. The music for this sounds like the perfect balance between something that could fit in a movie, but also something that sounds like a sustainable, not too expensive way to show that you're making a smash hit show. Music composition, especially on the level of Disney, is expensive, so it isn't something that I think you can take lightly. Also, a subtle way to continue wondering what exactly happened to Scrooge, tear out one of the words in the headlines that would make everything make sense. Scrooge also looks at this deep sea diving suit, which was something that earlier the bird investor guys were talking about. So something is bound to happen with that suit. We get back to the others, where we see Dewey again is the doer of the group, at least for this episode. After breaking off the handle, they get kidnapped and taken into this room. Here we meet Webby, who interrogates these new faces within the manor. I like how the evil triplet is the one crying the most. I also have to say that I've seen both Donald and now these three triplets hit the ground, and they appear to not squish or contract or go extremely off model, so I guess it's going to be that kind of cartoon, which I'm not saying is bad, but it's an interesting way to go. So she brings them to this board, which has tons of references to the original DuckTales show. You have a photo of Webby wearing her original pink outfit from the original, you have photos of other ducks, Gladstone, Gander, Downy McDuck, and much more that I'll leave you guys to point out. There's tons of references on the board, and it shows that the people behind this reboot really want this show to be a homage instead of a cash grab. They are proud where this show comes from, and they want to make it even better without sacrificing integrity. Dewey also hears Scrooge talk about how much he doesn't really care about his family, while they go through a vent to find something fun to do. And I also want to point out that although they call Donald Duck boring, and they call Scrooge boring, they call themselves boring. Kind of a pattern I'm seeing here, and I sense a problem that could arise if they become, quote, too cool for the room. I really hope that I'm wrong on that front. Scrooge talks about trying to find Atlantis, although he says it has nothing to do with the children calling him a has-been. He clearly shows all over his face that he has something to prove, despite calling himself the richest duck in the lake, or something of that sort earlier. In fact, he goes on and on about how he made his riches by himself, and he shows that that's the type of person he is. When he seems to be going on a dangerous mission to show three kids that he's not a has-been, when he simply could have answered their questions and been a decent human being to not get in this scenario in the first place. One may call this petty of him, and another may call this his competitive spirit, and it just depends on which side of the coin you're looking at. So now Dewey has not the twinkle in his eye about Scrooge anymore, after hearing him trash the idea of a family, supposedly behind their backs, to a secretary who wants nothing to do with the cleaning. He calls everything fake after seeing Donald Duck, the one who couldn't even wrangle these three kids together, in a photo with Scrooge. There's also this gem. Now, because the children know about Donald as a boring old duck who's trying to get a real job and lives on a boat outside the city, Huey and Louie also join in on the cynicism. They also drop the name of Photoshop, so now there's really no going back. They activate this sword that only stops when its foe is dead, but its foe is already dead, so it does this infinite loop. Louie activates the headless horse, and worst of all, Scrooge finds out about all of this. I will say the action here, while pales in comparison to what we will see later, screams adventure but constrained. They really don't want to show you everything until they want to. It's like I said, with tension and release. In fact, Scrooge doesn't do too much at all when saving them. Plus, you would think that because he did this, he is most likely no longer seen as a has-been, but let's sweep that under the rug. Throughout the chaos, this gong here was hit 2 times. If hit 3 times, something bad would happen. So one more hit and chaos erupts.
All we wanted was to hang out with you. I guess family is nothing but trouble. Right, Scrooge?
Oh, what are you gaping at? The curse is only activated if you ring the gong 3 times, and you already hit it 2 times, didn't you?
And like I said, chaos erupts.
I'm gonna go eat a hamburger.
We're in.
To be clear, I'm gonna go catch the dragon. The hamburger was a metaphor from before.
Yeah, no, we get it,
Actually, I'm gonna get a hamburger. I'll be right back. Jeez, $3 for a hamburger? It's crazy. So, coming back, we get a lot of action that I don't want to spoil. The shots they took make it seem more cinematic, and the way this is clearly established, with blurred backgrounds and the parallax scrolling to show that the buildings are not moving all at the same speed, looks really nice. It's very fast-paced, and I love the more dull colors contrasted against the yellow dragon to make this scene pop out more. Even the sky has this relaxed feel, to show that Scrooge's once calm life has been now ruthlessly dragged from under him. Before falling to his death, the one who said that he didn't care about his family now has his family that care about him, including Dewey, who rescues him. Launchpad as the pilot, although not saying too much other than being joyfully optimistic, flies Scrooge over the dragon, and with the device talked about earlier from Scrooge's garage, they defeat the dragon in a truly amazing scene, with Scrooge falling to his maybe not death. He ends up doing his signature dive into the money, and all of this is way more awesome than I can ever make it out to be. If you haven't seen this show, I would suggest you start off with this amazing pilot. You would get a feel for the atmosphere that it's trying to create. Launchpad crashes the plane, and you would think because the children were never seen sitting that they all died, but everyone's okay. And now I'm starting to think that they're incapable of being hurt.
That was incredible! When you pulled me into the airplane and said, no time! Oh, and who would have thought of a Medusa gauntlet? Brilliant! Oh, and then you swung me out and pulled up just in time and you kids are nothing but trouble! Curse me kilts, have I missed trouble.
So now with Huey, Louie, Dewey, and Webby and Launchpad, they're off to Atlantis, under Donald Duck's nose. So you're probably wondering what happened to him. Well, he ended up being the new sailor for Flintheart Glomgold, later to be revealed as the rival of Scrooge McDuck, and guess what? They're off to find Atlantis as well. So we get to that moment where you hear this amazing theme song sung by Felicia Barton. Really hope I'm not butchering that. The song itself is catchy and great, and you all may have that same belief, so I would rather just talk about the visuals. It's so integrated with the different scenes and assets that it wants to show, and it brings a modern spin to what is a classic cartoon. Everything about this, from the drawings in the background, to the action that's going on in the front, to the symbolism of hopping off the page. Really, everything about this is not just well done, but as close to perfect that you can get. Is it me, or are the newer comic book inspired shows getting great theme songs? Except that one. I'd rather listen to the Pickle and Peanut theme song over that. So the main antagonist of the episode, Flintheart Glomgold, establishes himself as a very envious and derivative person who loves nothing more than to get the best out of nothing, in a half-hearted manner with selfish intentions. He has his team here, which are just what they are. Because they are written to be uninspired, there isn't really too much to say about them, at least for this episode. Scrooge, now taking his 3 nephews on an adventure, for the most part subjects them to sitting and watching a pro at work, despite saying that he likes trouble, so this works as well as you'd think, and that's zilch. Well, Webby did not tell her grandmother that she's on a submarine, but questions why Louie didn't tell Donald about the fact that they're on a submarine. And Louie really is the evil one, as he instructs Webby to lie. Now, do you remember when Donald was being pestered by Huey, Louie, and Dewey? Well, they don't stop, even for a congillionaire. They show proof that their interventions cause trouble. This is a down period where we get to learn a lot of subtle things about the characters. We also get the very much needed separation between the triplets. Like any other show where the characters look similar, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you need a lot, and you need to show a lot of how each character would react to X, and to make it clear who is who, and they do a lot of that here. So the submarine that Scrooge is in comes an awful lot close to Flintheart's ship and his Glomgold crew, including Donald Duck. Donald, trying to have an honest blue-collar job, finally realizes that he may be in trouble, and so are his boys. I know that the new Donald Duck actor has had a lot of communications with the original voice actor, and I gotta say, I can't do this justice. If you haven't seen this series premiere, again, you really should. So as both crews get to the upside down city of Atlantis, I gotta reiterate, the music here is brilliant. I like how they give a backstory to Atlantis, and not do the whole, it's fantasy so we can do whatever. They give a clear and logical reason to why Atlantis is upside down. Also, it may be the actual legend, and someone in the comment section will confirm that. So now Donald has to play, try not to give away your cover, but protect the other side, which comes off just as comedic as you think.
Remember, you're at a friend's house, okay? You got this.
Hi, Granny, I'm spending the night at a friend's house, so nothing is wrong!
Oh, you don't got this.
She really doesn't. That in every way sounded like a lie. Probably should have had her start small. Also, she gives a very sheltered vibe to me. She thought a simple garage was a giant museum, if you don't remember. This is all changing her scope of what is big and what isn't. And I think that's pretty important to point out. Donald excuses himself from the group, and we get the scene here. As you can see, Dewey is going to be the main focus for the main plot, and Louie is going to be the main focus of the side plot. Sorry, Huey. Look here how Dewey is completely unaware of all the chaos he's causing. If it wasn't for Donald at the bottom, we'd be getting roasted duck.
Sure, if you want to do it the easy way.
Why wouldn't you want to do it the easy way?
Because of scope. Dewey wants to do all the cool stuff, but he learns that adventuring is full of doing, but it's also full of planning. I do have one small gripe. They get to Atlantis awfully late, so we don't get to see too much adventuring. But I guess this is their way of saying that now they don't have to do too much introduction and exposition, that the later episodes will get into this much sooner. Flintheart and Scrooge meet up and we get this scene here.
Your new job is with my sworn enemy?
Donald has been a model employee and an excellent prisoner.
Hiring my own nephew in order to use him against me? Now that is good planning.
Yeah, Dewey kind of messed things up. However, like any other treasure, wouldn't a booby trap go off? Why didn't anything go off when Flintheart took the treasure of Atlantis? This is because, and Dewey got this, Atlantis is upside down, and the true treasure is at the top. The tension quickly fades, and it gives me this sort of exponential vibe. Think of an exponential line. It's like a curve, and most of the trip was Scrooge and Dewey fighting, and Scrooge and Dewey fighting, and Scrooge and Dewey fighting, until the end where at near death he proves himself. With Donald's help, they do take out the treasure in a truly amazing scene. The scenery is amazing, the atmosphere is great, but I've said all of this a million times. Also, the way the other children are fighting the other two is so cartoonishly epic that only a giant like Disney can truly master it, even for a reboot cartoon series. Flintheart, because he's selfish at his core, leaves even if his henchmen die, as he blows up Atlantis. I guess the other riches just lie at the bottom of the sea. I don't want to spoil too much of the climax, but it is fantastic, and it's a great combination of family issues being resolved and adventure with a little humbleness.
Could we, maybe bum a ride with you?
No, leave them to drown. They almost killed you multiple times. But since I'm not Scrooge nor Donald, geez, I'd be an anti-hero or a wild card, wouldn't I? All of them make it back to Duckburg, just in time for Flintheart to get his just desserts. The ending winds down with a couple of things that get resolved. Donald learns to be not so overprotective, but the boys learn that he does it because he truly loves them. Scrooge learns that Dewey may be overexcited, but he can learn if he's given the chance. Webby learns to not lie to her grandmother, but she's also allowed on any of the adventures. And lastly, I learned that I need to watch more of this series and faster.
Mom?
Oh my god, don't do this to me. Oh my god. Well, I just became a super fan of the DuckTales reboot. I don't know about you, but I'm going to need to watch a lot more of DuckTales and do a lot more videos on it. So add that to the giant pile of stuff that I have to do. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know, what do you think of the new DuckTales reboot? Did it start off well? I think so. Make sure to answer in the comments down below. I read all of them. Also, make sure to follow me at the ALPHAJ Show on Twitter for the latest and greatest in the new 280 character goodness. That still means anything that I'm thinking about at the moment. Also, like I said in my previous video, the new community tab is awesome. It's a great way for me to do polls, sneak peeks of new thumbnails, or maybe, just maybe, I'm still thinking about it, but just maybe, an unlisted video. The links for my Twitter, all of my other social media outlets, and my request page, just like KND, just like Mimic Madness, this was also a request. You can send requests there, not in this comment section below, only on my request video. If you really like this video, I highly suggest watching all of my Did This Start Off Well series in this really handy playlist here. Make sure to subscribe and feel free to consider my Patreon. As always, I hope your time is well spent, and Alpha out.